Izzy at Minerva. Today we're going to be looking at how to create just a pair of simple wide-legged trousers. This is a really simple adaptation to your block, but it creates a really different silhouette across the legs, as you can see in the image next to me right here. This is a great little pattern. I can't wait to get into it with you. As ever, you're going to need your standard pattern drafting tools, which are listed next to me here as well. Your block's going to look different to mine. That's totally fine. Everyone's body is completely unique, so we wouldn't expect our blocks to all look the same. In today's video, I am wearing one of my top favourite little dresses, which is the Montana midi dress by Style Arc Patterns. And this is made in our Minerva exclusive viscose chalet in Rose Relations fabric. So the Rose Relations print, really cute. It is wearing really well. So do check that out, and also we'll tag those products below the video if you're interested in purchasing your own. And don't forget, there's also a sew along on our YouTube channel, so feel free to grab that if you need some extra support sewing this particular dress. Now, don't forget that in this series, we're literally looking at how to make adaptations to the block of the trousers. We're not looking at doing the finishing things like adding the hems and the waistbands, because this whole series is about creating opportunity for you to mix and match between different videos and different pattern drafting techniques to create something completely bespoke. So if you want to create your own waistband to this trouser block that I'm going to show you today, this trouser adaptation, you can refer back to videos 14 to 20, where I talk about how to create waistbands. In that series, I've been looking at how to create waistbands to a skirt. However, the concept is exactly the same for trousers. So I hope that's really helpful. Consequently, today we're not going to be adding a waistband or even a seam allowance to the top of our waist, because if you want to do that and you want to change that, there's no point in me demoing that, because you're probably going to add your own waistband to the trousers and your own hem and your own hem length and all that jazz. Let's get straight on into it now. Okay, so in front of me here, I have got my front trouser and my back trouser. This is my block, it's going to be different to yours. What we want to do basically for the wide leg trouser is take a point from this crotch line, which is across here, and drop it straight down to the hem. However, we want to make sure that the amount that we increase the hem by to either side, to the side seam and the inner seam, is the same distance from the original hem point down there. So in order to do that, we need to work out what the smallest distance is that we are able to increase it by without sending it out into a flare shape. Let's do that together now quickly. Okay, so I'm going to work on the front trouser to start off with. Lay my pattern drafting ruler aligned with the crotch line, which is here. I'm just going to grab this nice long ruler and butt it straight up against there. And I'm just going to draw a line down here that tells me where that line would continue to. So that is the maximum distance that this side of the leg can increase by without flaring it out. Let's measure that off. And that is exactly 3 centimetres. Now you can probably just visually see if any of the other ones are smaller than that, but if I lay my ruler like this, I can see that the distance is significantly bigger than 3 centimetres. Don't even need to measure that. And then if we move on to the back, just check this side. I can see already, look, it's more than 4 centimetres. This is our 4 centimetre line here, isn't it? So by the time it hits there, it will be way more than 4 centimetres from that crotch line. If we send the line straight down, yeah, we're looking at 4.5 down there. And likewise up at the top up here. Oh wow, this is huge. The difference down here is going to be big, isn't it? So if we drop that down like that, we've got way more than 3 centimetres. Okay, so what we've established by doing that check is the maximum width that we need to increase our legs by in order to get a nice wide leg effect without compromising the shape and having a nice straight legs going down. Okay, so to start off with then, working along the hemline down here, increase the hemline by a width of 3 centimetres to either side. Now at the front, the trouser leg is completely parallel with the knee line and the crotch line. We only curved the back leg, didn't we? So what we're going to do now is just draw a line that goes all the way up to that crotch line. Okay, brilliant. And then the same on this side. Oh, that's almost perfect there, isn't it? Okay, great. So we're increasing it by 3. What you'll notice is that at this point here, it is obviously not coming up to here, but we just need to find a nice soft curve just to grade it into that inner leg seam. That feels like a good soft curve. So now we've got our front trouser leg with 3 centimetres increase on both sides. Okay, and then for the back trouser leg, we're just going to repeat that process, adding 3 centimetres to either side of the hem. So with the hem down here, don't forget that we created this kind of soft curve before, didn't we? So we've got these points here and here. And what we want to do is just create that nice soft curve again. But instead of it coming to there, that curve, we're going to make it a bit wider. So it's actually coming from there across to there, but we still want it to hit that bottom bit down there. So wanting to hit the middle of that curve. So from here, we're just going to bring it down. And likewise on the other side, just create that nice soft curve into the centre of the leg. Using my knee line, that's how I'm going to just double check and get a line that's going straight up, because obviously we've got a curve down here. So just to make sure that I'm running everything parallel, I've lined up that ruler with there, popping this one in here. Let's just draw in that line. Now again, up at the top up here, let's just curve that in nicely. Brilliant. And just repeat that process for the other side. Lovely, just curved it off there nicely. And it really is as simple as that. So I'm going to cut out these pieces now and then create pattern pieces out of them. We're going to add our seam allowances now to the pattern pieces, but don't forget and don't be disheartened if you've only increased your trousers by a small amount, like I have, say 3 centimetres, because we've increased this by 3 centimetres, we've also increased that by 3 centimetres, which means we've got an overall 6 centimetre increase across the front and then another 6 around the back. So actually we've got 12 centimetres increase of volume around the hem, so it is going to look nice and different compared to our standard block that we've got. So let's take a look at how to add our seam allowances and mark up our pattern piece correctly. We may as well start at the hem because we've just been talking about that. Now, as mentioned, I'm not adding a seam allowance to the hem, so I'm just going to draw straight across it. At the top waist, which is our natural waist, I'm not adding a seam allowance, I'm not adding a waistband to this, so there's no need for me to do that. This is just a toile as discussed at the beginning. And then we're just going to add a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance around both side seams and down the centre front crotch line. Okay, once you've added your seam allowances, then just draw in your dart. We just got one at the front trouser pattern piece, so we're not adapting that at all. We still want a nice fitted look up at the top. And then we're just going to add our notches in for our knee so we can see where to match it up with our back pattern. And on this one, I've just got my crotch reference line, so I'm just going to add a little notch onto the side seam for that one as well. Grain line runs perpendicular to the knee line or the crotch line. And this is our wide leg trouser, front trouser leg, cut 2. Excellent, cut that out now. We're going to repeat the exact same process on the back, no different. We're just going to duplicate the entire process. Let's do that together now. Okay, so for our back trouser pattern piece, we've just left the waistband, no seam allowance up there. As with the front, we've added a seam allowance down the outer side seam and the inner seam as well for the trousers. Added our notches, not added any seam allowance at the hem. Just going to leave that as it is. Grain line runs perpendicular to the knee or crotch line, and we've labelled it and annotated it to say it's the wide leg trouser pattern piece. We'll be cutting 2. We have also included our darts because we want that really nice fit around the waist. Great. Okay, so now for the fun bit of sewing it up and seeing what it actually is going to look like. And then obviously from there you may well want to tweak it again. This is just our first little toile of our wide leg trousers. So let's get straight into it. Let's work on the front trouser leg to start off with. We've obviously got 2 front trouser legs and we've got a dart up at the top of each one. So very carefully, with the wrong side facing up on the table, I'm just going to pin those darts in place. So I'm going to pin with the pin pointing towards the waistband so that I can easily take those out as I sew it. I'm going to pop one down at the bottom so I can see where the end is down there. And then I'm also just going to pin one in between. Now what I'm making sure that I'm really carefully doing is that I'm making sure the pins are going through the dotted lines of the carbon paper where I've transferred the dart line marking. That's going to give me a really nice and accurate finish. You may just need to kind of play around with that just a little bit to get that accuracy that you're wanting. So you do it on one, and then let's repeat it for the other one too. Okay, lovely. Let's sew that together now. So when we start off sewing one of our darts, we're going to start at the top and sew off towards the end, reinforce the stitch at the beginning and leave a nice tail of thread at the end. As you get to the last inch, you can reduce the stitch length just to get a really nice tight finish on your dart. And once you've done one, just repeat that process for the other one. Okay, lovely. So as you can see, the stitch line is following the carbon copy paper dot line on that side and also on the other side. So it's nice and neat, so you're getting that really nice and accurate. At this end, what we're going to do is just tie off the loose ends with a couple of knots. Now I'm using contrasting thread in this video as usual in this series, just so you can really clearly see at home exactly what we're doing. You may well want to use contrasting thread for your toiles, or you may just want to use something that is nice and blends in beautifully and complements your fabric choice. For toiles, I guess it doesn't really matter unless you intend it to be a wearable toile. Lovely. So now we've got two darts for our front trouser leg, and what we want to do is just press those towards the side seam. So that way and that way, that one, and that way on that one. This is the centre front seam here, so we're pushing them away towards the side. Okay, so on our back pattern piece, we actually have two darts on each leg. So let's pin those in the same way we did for our front and sew them in exactly the same way too. Okay, we're now going to sew one leg to the other. So let's get the one back leg and pop it right side facing up, and then get the corresponding front leg and right side facing down. So right sides are together with the curve of the crotch line aligning on one side. We're then just going to pin it. Now don't forget that we've got our helpful little knee notch and a little hip notch as well. So let's pin it at the hem and then both those notches and the waistline before we then infill the seam with a number of other pins as required. Okay, and once you've done one side, we'll just flip it round and do the other side too. So line up those notches and the hem, and then the top of the inseam, and then fill in the pins in between. Once you've pinned both sides, we're then just going to sew it together using our standard seam allowance and standard stitch length. Now, if like me, you have just sewn both the sides like I told you to, we actually need to unpick this side here, the side seam at the back. The reason why we're going to do that is because this is the left side seam, and this is the seam that we want to put our zip into. Obviously we need to be able to get into the trousers, which is always helpful when wearing them, isn't it? And just generally as a rule of thumb, openings are usually on the left of the garment, so I'm just going to unpick that here on the side quickly. And obviously when we're doing toiles, the stitch length is often a little bit longer. It can be, just so that you can unpick and adapt these sorts of things if you forget to do them. So I've just unpicked it down to the crotch line, the notch that I'd done there, and that just means I'll be able to easily get it in and just pin it in place just to check how it's fitting as my final toile. Fantastic. All we're going to do now is just repeat that whole process with the other leg, but we are going to be pinning it in all the way up to the waist on the side seam this time. Okay, wonderful. So we've got two legs nicely sewn together now. At this point, if you want to, you can either press the seams open or towards the back. Okay, lovely. Now we've pressed open those seams, I want you just to grab one leg and turn it right side out. Lovely. Okay, so now we've got the front leg here with one dart and also the front leg here on this one with one dart. What we're going to do now is make sure that the front is matching along the crotch line, but we need to sew the trousers right sides together. So the one that you've just turned right side out, pop that into the other trouser leg so the right sides are together. Okay, so we've got both legs in here, and what we're going to do first is just pin that crotch seam together at the centre, front and centre back, where those two things align at the top of the inner seam. Then next I'm just going to grab the waistband at the centre front on both front trouser leg pieces and pin those in place. And then I'm just going to pin along the rest of that curve of that crotch line for the leg piece. Now these should just be matching up exactly because they're just exactly the same pattern piece, aren't they? Okay, so once you've done the front, we're then going to move on to the back and just repeat that process for the back. Lovely. So now with right sides together, what we've got now is a completely pinned crotch line. So we're going to sew that in place now. Okay, lovely. Let's turn it so this is wrong side facing out now, so we can see exactly what the trousers look like. It's a bit like magic this, isn't it? How it all just sort of comes together. Okay, and now we have a lovely pair of trousers all beautifully sewn up together. The only thing left to do is just to press that centre seam and the crotch seam all the way down the front and onto the back. And here are our beautiful trousers, beautifully sewn up. Okay, so you can really see that excess volume down at the bottom there. We've got a beautiful pair of wide leg trousers, looking so good. It's a really simple pattern drafting technique, but it works really nicely, doesn't it? That's a really elegant solution to a pair of trousers. And don't forget obviously that you can add all those extra bits to the waistband, you could add pockets, you could do all sorts of different things to really refine that style so that it is exactly as you really want it. I hope you've really enjoyed that little adaptation to our trouser legs. It's just shown you some really simple principles of how to increase the width of that hem nice and evenly so it gives you a beautiful, elegant finish. Next week, we're going to start to look at how to create dungarees, which is going to be one that is really cute, and I cannot wait to do that one with you next week. So please do tune in next week and follow our Minerva YouTube channel for more video content. Thank you for joining me today. I've been Izzy at Minerva. I'll see you next time.